Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on Budget for Success in 100% of NSLP Entitlement. I would like to introduce Janet West from the Program Integrity and Monitoring Branch to present this presentation. Janet?
Thank you. So I'm so excited to present the topic of National School Lunch Program Entitlement. This information will provide you the knowledge to set up the state distributing agency to spend 100% of your National School Lunch Program entitlement. Today I'll provide information about the beginning budget, key dates, and what you can do along the way to reach your goal. Entitlement means the value of USDA Foods a distributing agency is authorized to receive in a specific program in accordance with program legislation. Entitlement is calculated based on regulations found in 7 CFR 250.58b. Each state receives a certain amount of money for the purchase of USDA foods. The 12% provision equals at least 12% of the total federal assistance provided to National School Lunch Program to be spent on USDA foods. If not, then the difference is added to increase states' entitlement. Entitlement is intended to be spent in the year it was received. It's important to understand the components of the beginning entitlement budget. Each of these areas are important to understand in order to provide your state the groundwork for spending 100% of your entitlement. States that consistently spend all of the entitlement fully comprehend their beginning budget, the data that is used, and when it is updated. So here it is in a nutshell. Begin with the entitlement data in WebSCM. Know where each figure comes from. Account for any issues unique to your state, like if the official lunches are short due to strike or disaster, or if you have unusual warehouse or transportation contracts. Mirror all changes to WebSCM beginning data in your state software if you're not rolling down to your SFAs in WebSCM. Redistribute unspent PAL or planned assistance level to SFAs who will use it. Monitor orders for your purchase price changes, and then add or delete orders throughout the school year to get to 100% spent. And now we'll discuss the key components of entitlement: rate, carryover, and eligible lunches for National School Lunch Program in WebSCM on the budget screen. To know what the key components, meals, rate, carryover, are, we can look at the budget data that has been entered into WebSCM. These are the bases for beginning entitlement. To view the entitlement data, go to WebSCM and select Operations, then Order Processing, then Entitlement Management. Select the program, then under Current Selection, enter the school year as SY and the 2-digit year, and click OK. So this is the entitlement budget screen for National School Lunch Program. Looking at the header level, the arrows are directed toward the eligible lunches, called meals in WebSCM to accommodate for all programs, the estimated per meal rate, and the carryover columns. In the next slide, we will discuss each column further. This is just a more detailed view of the WebSCM budget screen in the previous slide. Let's first look at the per meal rate. The per meal rate is an estimate until it's published in the Federal Register in July, and it now includes the F&S meal rate adjustment, which are the dollars from the 12% provision. 12% provision basically states that if we have not spent at least 12% of our dollars on USDA Foods in National School Lunch Program, then the difference is added to increase states' entitlement in National School Lunch Program. The meal count is the most recent official final school meals from the National Data Bank. I'll refer to this as NDB. For school year 19, the meal count number is from school year 18 until November, when school year 19 are official. Now let's look at carryover. Carryover can be positive or negative and is updated throughout the year at every milestone change, which is prior to school year ordering, prior to order due dates, and when the per meal rate is updated in July, and once in the fall prior to reconciliation. Then finally, when lunches are available to close out the current year and update subsequent school years. Rate times meals plus carryover makes up the state's beginning entitlement. Your beginning entitlement amount only changes if an upload is done to change any of the columns on the budget screen. I email states when there are changes. So FNS distributes the entitlement to the states. The entitlement belongs to the state, and the state is responsible to spend the entitlement in the year it was received. The state distributes entitlement to their SFAs as Planned Assistance Level, or PAL. Let's look at what commodity offer value should be distributed to SFAs as Planned Assistance Level, or PAL. Again, you will see the WebSCM SDA entitlement budget screen. You will see the estimated per meal rate, which is indicated by the purple arrow. This state also had a positive carryover of $209.5 thousand from the previous school year. This gave the state an entitlement of over $28.5 million to spend. It is circled in purple. The amount should be distributed to the SFAs as planned assistance to spend through the school year. The green triangle shows that the SFAs then chose to spend $3.7 million on USDA DoD Fresh, leaving $24.8 million to be spent on USDA Foods direct delivery or processing. There are 3 USDA Foods options that can be used in your request-driven ordering system to spend your entitlement. The SDA should ensure that based on input received from SFAs, the types and forms of USDA Foods preferred by SFAs are made available. SDA should allow orders of USDA Foods to be entered throughout the school year, and they may also periodically adjust their allocation for USDA DoD Fresh to ensure full utilization of entitlement. Just one more thing on the per meal rate so that you are aware. Every state has a different per meal rate after carryover is added. If you're using WebSCM, carryover has already been added in. It gets a little tricky when you're using other methods to distribute PAL to SFAs. If you use the before DoD entitlement dollars, as seen in the previous slide, and the lunches, you're already adding in the carryover. But if you're using the rate from WebSCM or from an email of mine and simply multiplying times the lunches, you'll also need to add in the carryover so that it will be distributed to SFAs. It is important to understand this because if the SDA or SFA simply divides meals times rate, the result in most cases will not equal the published per meal rate or the effective per meal rate in WebSCM. We looked at the per meal rate, planned assistance level or PAL, and carryover. So now let's look deeper at the eligible lunches, which is one of the 3 components used to arrive at the beginning entitlement found on the budget screen in WebSCM. The meal counts you enter to distribute to SFAs should be the most accurate eligible lunches available to you per your state. You should be aware of how your state is trending. In fact, many states keep a spreadsheet that they update to see the trend on a monthly basis. Many are continuously update their software with the new lunch information. The eligible lunches that I enter in WebSCM for the SDA are the official counts from the National Data Bank, or NDB, and are not as updated as you will have access to. In each state, financial management staff enters your lunches monthly into a system called FIPPers. The lunches in NDB come from this information. Currently, WebSCM lists the last final lunch counts available. So school year 20 will use the final official school year 18 lunches until the actual school year 19 lunches are available in the National Data Bank in November of 2019. Your state has access to more recent lunch data to use for your SFA PAL distribution. Please use it so that you have no surprises at the end of the year. And also be aware that we, at the national office, do not have that information yet. So if asked, you may need to explain that your state entitlement appears over because your lunches are trending up, or appears under because your lunches are trending down. Okay, so we just spoke about lunches, carryover, and the published and effective per meal rate, including the different rate each state will have due to carryover. Another factor to consider if your state can spend 100% entitlement is what material price is on your requisitions, soon to be sales orders. Let's briefly discuss this. But first, good news. If you roll WebSCM down to your SFAs, this is already done for you. When using WebSCM, the material price on requisitions is updated to the purchase price on the sales orders once the material is purchased. If you do not use WebSCM, you are required to update the material prices at least 2 times. This helps to keep orders close to the actual purchase price of the material as possible. As sales orders are purchased, the material price updates on purchase orders. All your other unpurchased sales orders will also update to the last average purchase price. As this happens, the SFA may need to either add additional opportunities for SFAs to spend their PAL, or they may need to reduce some orders. Reduction of overspending by the SFA should only be done if you're over entitlement as a state, and after the per meal rate is final, and your state has factored in other changes to your actual lunches or lunch projections for the year. Just a little more information on material price and how it changes. The last average purchase price, or LAP, is calculated each weekend and is based on new purchase orders created and price changes to existing purchase orders. Your sales orders are bought in groups on purchase orders. When the orders change to purchase status, the price updates and can be seen in the summary report and specifically on the entitlement detail report. WebSCM entitlement reports are the official record of entitlement spent and or how your percent spent is determined. You should run your entitlement detail report at least monthly to check material price changes on your orders. When running this report regularly, you can see how purchase prices are changing your entitlement ending balance. If you're using a software system other than WebSCM, you will need to update prices at least semi-annually to reflect the most recent USDA purchase price. USDA Foods can be valued in 3 ways. The cost per pound of USDA Foods, which is the November list of materials, or the most recently published per pound cost in USDA Foods catalog, or the rolling average of USDA food prices, the average material file. USDA does post the November list of materials and the average material file annually on the website. State distributing agencies must have a process in place to monitor and reconcile entitlement balances and orders. The SDA should plan to spend 100% of entitlement and ensure that SFAs receive their full commodity offer value and maximize the use of USDA Foods. As mentioned previously, the amount of entitlement is updated twice per year by the national office, once when the per meal rate is published and once when the lunches are official. The ending balance will also vary throughout the year as orders are placed and purchases are made. In WebSCM, entitlement is tracked like a checkbook as purchases are made. The updated value of the donated foods is deducted from the total entitlement. It is up to the state to track orders placed and delivered. The state should also use WebSCM to frequently monitor and update entitlement balances. And if WebSCM is not rolled down to the SFAs, they should have a method to also monitor SFA planned assistance levels. There are 2 reports in WebSCM that states should frequently run to monitor Entitlement Bonus Summary Report and the Entitlement Detail Report. These reports have most up-to-date SDA balances and prices paid for USDA Foods. States should have a process in place to monitor the entitlement and planned assistance level balances. Throughout the school year, the SDA must reconcile the SFA's commodity offer value with the amount of USDA Foods received to ensure that SFAs are maximizing their planned assistance level. If an SFA has PAL remaining, this will affect the SDA's overall entitlement spend. Okay, so we discussed the lunches, carryover, and rate, including the effective individual state's rate due to carryover, and how the material prices of foods change entitlement. Now, the last factor that will affect if your state can meet 100% entitlement spent is if you have distributed all of your entitlement as PAL to SFAs who will spend 100%. In order to spend 100% of your dollars, every SDA needs to order 100% and remain at 100%. This part takes time for each state to finesse what works best. Every state is different, but most states that meet 100% entitlement spent have starting PAL requests of about 105% in order to be positioned to end up at 100% as a state. States should monitor recipient PAL throughout the year. If a recipient is not using their allocated amount, the state should intervene to ensure that their PAL, and in turn the state's entitlement, is spent in the year it was received. The state must offer SFA their share of PAL. However, if the SFA is not using their PAL, it is the state's responsibility to redistribute the PAL to an SFA who can and will benefit from it in the year it was received. Again, key entitlement dates in WebSCM should be mirrored in your system to reach 100%. Key dates when there are beginning entitlement updates. If you're using a system other than WebSCM to distribute PAL, these updates need to be mirrored in that system. In July, the per meal rate is published in the Federal Register, and we reevaluate the amount of dollars to be added from the 12% provision that I explained earlier. And in mid-November, the lunches will be updated to the actual lunches in the National Data Bank. Also in August and September, after the school year's ended, any account that can be reconciled to actual spent will be, for example, the USDA DoD Fresh program. Entitlement is intended to be spent in the year it was received. States are encouraged to spend 100% of their entitlement. There are many factors that help states achieve this goal, including using a request-driven system, setting up accurate commodity offer values, and having a process to monitor and update entitlement and orders. So to recap, start with WebSCM figures. Know their origin, factor any unique issues that occurred in your state, know when changes to WebSCM beginning data occur and mirror those if you're not using WebSCM at the SFA level. Redistribute PAL when not being used. Monitor orders for price changes and add or delete orders throughout the school year to get to 100% spent. Entitlement does take some time to fully understand. If you have questions, please contact me. And here are a few questions to consider. Let's look at one. Do you reallocate unused PAL to other RAs or districts? I hope you do. If an RA isn't using their planned assistance level, you should let them know that you will need to redistribute it to another RA who can use it in the year it was received. Another question, how frequently do you permit recipient agencies to submit orders to USDA Foods? I hope you allow RAs to submit orders throughout the school year. Thank you for listening.
Janet, thank you for a very informative presentation on Budget for Success in 100% of NSLP entitlement. If you have any questions after viewing this webinar, please contact the National Office Food Distribution Division. Thank you for listening.